Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio. This is the All Access Med School Admissions Podcast. Hello again, everybody. I'm your host, Christian Essman, and I'm the Senior Director of Admissions and Financial Aid here at the medical school. Hey, it's great to be with you again. I hope that you're doing well. Kind of imagining that you're saying, yeah, I am Christian, living the dream, baby. I'm really excited to get this episode out to you. I've had the recording for a couple of weeks, but just haven't had the time necessary to get it ready for prime time until now. So thanks for your patience. Your patience will be rewarded, though, too, because I have 3 more episodes coming your way featuring the Ohio University Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine, the Oregon Health and Sciences University, and the Tulane University School of Medicine. So I'm working on scheduling others as well. So a lot coming your way. All right, let me get right into it and tell you about the school we're featuring today. It's the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. The Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai is located in New York City on Manhattan's Upper East Side, bordering the neighborhood known as East Harlem. Since it opened in 1968, the school has become a world-class leader in medical education, research, and patient care. Their mission is to produce physicians and scientists who are prepared to enter society as informed advocates and activists, able to advance clinical care and science and capable of promoting change. They strive to develop new approaches to teaching, translate scientific discoveries into improvements in patient care, and identify new ways to enhance the health and educational opportunities for the communities they serve. The Icahn School of Medicine is the only medical school affiliated with the Mount Sinai Health System, which encompasses 8 hospital campuses in the New York metropolitan area and has a large regional ambulatory footprint. It is also one of the few medical schools embedded in a hospital in the United States, which provides medical students with access to invaluable hands-on clinical training. They're a private institution and accept applications from U.S. citizens, international applicants, including Canadians, and those with a DACA status. For the entering class of 2020, the Icahn School of Medicine received about 6,000 applications and interviewed 760 applicants for a class size of 140, which included 128 MD students and 12 MD PhD students. 50% were women and 20% self-identified from groups underrepresented in medicine. And 39% of their class came from their early assurance program, which we get into quite a bit in my conversation today with my guests. So let me tell you about my 2 guests. First, one of the voices you're going to be hearing is Jessica Maysonnet. She has a strong background in the arts and graduated from LaGuardia High School of Arts in New York City. And she received her Bachelor's of Arts from the SUNY Purchase School and has a graduate certificate in management from the CUNY School of Professional Studies. Jessica has recently been promoted to the Associate Director of Admissions and has been at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai for over a decade. She has played a major role in the implementation of their online admissions system as well as coordination of admissions processes for both the medical and graduate schools. Throughout her time in admissions, she has worked with the Senior Associate Dean for Admissions and Recruitment and the Center for Multicultural and Community Affairs, with a focus on diversity in the medical school. She has also assisted in the implementation of innovative admissions programs for the medical school, such as primary care scholars and global health scholars, as well as assisted in the coordinating the creation of the FlexMed Early Assurance Program. Jessica lives in the Bronx with her partner and their 2 children. The other voice you're going to be hearing is that of Jackie Chudow. Jackie Chudow is the Assistant Director of Admissions for Medical Education and Special Programs at the Icahn School of Medicine. For more than 6 years, Jackie has been an integral member of the admissions team by spearheading both admissions and advising components of the Early Assurance Program. And prior to joining the Icahn School of Medicine, she pursued her Master's of Arts degree at Teachers College, Columbia University in Higher and Post-Secondary Education Program. So there's a little bit about my 2 guests and the Icahn School of Medicine. So let's just jump right into it with my conversation with Jessica and Jackie. Hello, Hello, Jessica and Jackie. Thank you so much. It's great to have you here. You guys are helping me break into the New York City, environment of med schools. You're my first school from New York City to have on the show. So thank you so much. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, for sure. Thanks for having us.
I'm thrilled. And I know that our bosses work closely together. Dr. Vargas and Dr. Maida work together on COA. So we're like the people underneath that kind of really make stuff happen. So, so listen, before we're going to talk about curriculum, we're going to talk about your FlexMed program. We're going to talk about your admissions process, maybe what's going to be new next year happening. Maybe we'll talk about if you're going to do virtual interviews and that. But before we do that, I want to talk a little more about you. Jessica, how did you get involved in admissions? You have an interesting background. What kind of brought you into this, this world?
I often say it was kind of by accident. So I was working at Sinai, kind of in between college, and a faculty member that I knew said, "There's a position in admissions that I think you'd be great for." I didn't really know what that meant, and so I said, "Why not?" And I tried it, and I feel like it's a great career. The people that you get to meet, the fact that the school is so mission based is huge for me. And the students that we get to, the potential students and the students that we bring in are just phenomenal in what they care about and what they want to do in the future. It's just amazing. And it's kind of why I keep coming back every day.
Yeah. What do you find most rewarding?
So I feel like I make an impact, right? Like even I'm not doing anything medical. So I feel like there's not a lot that I can contribute, but I feel like I'm on this journey with them, right? Like I get to see them when they're coming into school with all their bright-eyed, dreams. And then I see them on the way out when they're graduating from medical school, and I know that they're going to go on and do amazing things with their career. So it's wonderful.
We have great products, don't we?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we have great products. So our students are our products. What's something that people are surprised to learn about you?
I think that I was supposed to be a performer. Growing up, I was always on the stage, either singing, acting, dancing, doing something. And I kind of use that in my day to day, to be honest.
Yeah.
In front of applicants in the morning, I try to get them a little bit comfortable in the space, because interview day can be horrible. And so if I can make them laugh, then it's just the bright spot in my day.
Yeah. We've often joked in our office, like admissions sometimes feels like sales, marketing, and acting. There is that element to it a little bit. That's cool. Jackie, how about you? How did you seem to have a background more in education. How did you kind of wind up finding yourself in the admissions office?
Yeah. So, before I started at Sinai, I was working in recruitment and human resources. So my big responsibility was a summer internship program, and I just loved working with the interns and decided to pivot a little bit and pursue a career working with students on a full-time basis, not just for the summer. So I decided to pursue my master's in higher education. And my goal was to seek out an advising position upon graduating. And so while I was doing some research, I really just came across this pre-enrollment coordinator position for the FlexMed program at Sinai. And I didn't really know the background and history of this early assurance program, but of course I did go into like a rabbit hole researching. And I just was so fascinated about not only the program, but I think overall how it is a reflection of Sinai's mission. So I was just really impressed by that program. And so fortunately, my position is both a combination of advising and admissions. So I get the best of both worlds. And I've been at Sinai since the first cohort of students were admitted about 6 years ago at this point. And it's been great. Just like Jess said, I love working with our students, meeting with phenomenal applicants. When they are admitted through FlexMed, they are with us for quite some time, since the end of their sophomore year. So we really see them develop and grow from their college experience through medical school and now residency. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. And well, you live in New York City. What do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? So I love following different Instagram accounts for food. Yeah. And then I love trying them out. Oh, that's great. That's fun. My hobby.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. There's a gajillion restaurants there in New York City, so I'm sure that's a fun field trip every time you go and do it. So
yes, for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it's kind of interesting when meeting all these different admissions people doing this project that a lot of people just kind of fall into it. We just you stumble upon it, and boy, if you click with it, it's a fun job. It is a fun job. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of Icahn School of Medicine, and I like to start off first with those curricular highlights. When you're meeting prospective applicants, what are some of those glows or those highlights that you like people to kind of draw them in with? So, wait, Jackie, when you do advising, and where do you start with students that come to you and say, "Can you tell me a little bit about Icahn?" Where do you start? What are those things that you jump on?
Right. Well, for sure. I mean, I think usually the question is, what do I need to put in my application? What are you looking for? What do I need to put in my application? And it's really more the applicant needs to think about what they're passionate about, what they bring to the table, and how that intersects with their passion for medicine. Sometimes we have students who they're passionate about ballet and they don't even think about including that in the application, but maybe they've experienced an injury, and from that injury was the impetus for pursuing medicine. So really to reflect on what their interests are, and then how that has really informed their decision to pursue medicine in the first place.
Yeah. Jessica, what about you when you are meeting new prospective applicants and they say, "Tell me a little bit about Icahn." What are those highlights that you share with them?
Yeah, I think the big thing is the educational philosophy of the school, which is a big thing for us. It's we're teaching adult learners, and medicine is such a lifelong learning process, right? And so some of the things that we like to kind of put the learning in their hands with a couple things, right? We have flex time on Tuesdays, both in the first and second year of school. And so this is really, it's kind of protected time for them to kind of manage their time throughout the week, give them a sense of, this is my time to do whatever I need to do. And that could be anything from doing your laundry, taking a nap, studying, right? Going to shadow, anything like that, right? And that's actually been now implemented into the clinical years as well. So there's actual protected time in the clinical years when you're on rotations, which was a little bit hard to implement, right? Because clearship directors, yeah. But it's a little bit about the wellness and about adult education, right? Learning how to manage your time a little bit more. We also, along those lines, we have exams online that open up kind of either on a Thursday or a Friday, and then you have a window of time. So it opens on a Thursday or Friday and the window can last, I think, until Sunday or Monday. And so you decide when the best time to take that exam is for you in your life, right? Let's say you have a family or a school obligation that's on like a Sunday or Saturday, and you just figure it out, right? I've heard some students are like, I just want to get the test over with, so I'm going to take it on Friday and I'll have my weekend, right? And then there's others who I need more time, and so I'll do it on Sunday. I'll take my time. I'll get the material. I'll digest it well, and then I'll do it on Sunday, and all the range in between, right? Yeah. But it's kind of like you have that window of time, you can figure it out for yourself. And then once you sign in, you have to take it in like a 2-hour window or something like that. But you can take it. Some crazy people have taken it like from an airport. As long as you have good Wi-Fi, it can work. But it really is like you can do it the best way that it meets your needs. And it's also another thing that's really great for the first and second year is that I've heard students say it's a true pass-fail system, which is great also. And it kind of creates that. I know no school is going to say we don't care about collaboration, but I think it creates this collaborative environment, right? Like you're all in it to pass. Yeah. You're all in it together. You all have to learn for your patients, and you all have to figure this out, right? Yeah. And so those are all the things that I hear from students, and so I tell applicants about.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like, because that probably underpins the culture, right? It's like we're on this now, we can teach one another and share information. What's that in the exam thing? I've not heard that from another school. How you get to pick kind of when do you want to do it? Whether you're a morning person, you want to knock it out, or you're like, I'm more of an after hit my peak usually around 4:00. I'll take it then. Right. That's really cool. I've not heard that from another school. Yeah. So it sounds like life balance is important to your medical school. What's a typical day, week kind of look like for a first year or second year?
Another kind of thing is individualized learning, right? So I think it depends on the person, but a typical schedule, I guess, and then you kind of curate it however works with you, is the main lectures are recorded, and I'm sure a lot of lectures nowadays are recorded. And then small group sessions are mandatory, right? And patient experiences are mandatory as well, right? So most like large lectures are usually in the morning. Okay. And then you have, I think first and second years all have the same lunchtime between maybe 12 or so and 1. And then depending on the day, there could be small group work in the afternoon, or like that Tuesday, you have the afternoons free. Okay. So really it depends on how you organize your week, right? And your learning style. Some people really like going to lectures, others not so much, and they can watch it later at their own speed. It's also what research you're into, what other like shadowing or leadership activities you're involved in, or community engagement, stuff like that. So that's kind of the way it's organized on paper. And then depending on what you're doing and what you're into, you kind of make it however way you need it.
That sounds cool. Would you say the curriculum is a balance of lecture and small group learning, or is it more lecture and then what's the small group piece? Like, is that case-based stuff, or is that just more taking time to kind of work through those things we talked about in lecture and small group?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a balance of small group and lecture. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's why the lectures are in the morning and then the small groups are in the afternoon. That makes sense. Then I forgot to mention every Wednesday for the 2 years is what we call our art and science and medicine. It's our doctoring course where you're actually learning how to, handle difficult situations or difficult conversations, taking patient histories and things like that. In the first year, it's all kind of the normal, I don't know what the term is, the like just kind of baseline, everything is okay, kind of body.
Normal physiology. And then, then the second year you get into the
and then you get into
state.
right. And so I think that ASM is structured that way as well. So ASM first year is kind of learning basic patient histories.
Okay.
And then second year is kind of those like getting into more meaty stuff, right? Difficult conversations and things like that.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, and that's every Wednesday. And usually the afternoons on Wednesdays, patient exposure and clinical experience and things like that.
You mentioned research. Oh, go ahead, Jackie. Go ahead.
Oh, and then also there's In Focus, which is usually a week-long course it's a specific topic. And I think that's embedded throughout the 4 years of medical school. So it could be research, global health, health inequity. There's a specific topic for each of the different In Focus weeks.
Cool. That sounds really neat. When it comes, students usually ask us about research. Can I start doing research as a first year medical student at your school? When that question comes up, what's the response?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a medical student research office where you kind of get involved or exposure to that office and those folks kind of from the moment you start, right? There is a research requirement that we have for students, and so a lot of that happens maybe that first summer, just because it's the most time, right? But there is definitely people who start from the moment they get into the school. They know exactly what they're going to do, and they're all for it. So there is that opportunity to get jump started.
Is research, do they have to do like a thesis project at some point? Or is it just, if you want to do research, you can get involved in it, but it's not a requirement for graduation?
It's a requirement. So that said, it can take any shape you want, if that makes sense. So there's different tracks within the research office, and I'm not going to remember all of them, but there's, bench research, there's translational, there's community participatory, there's, I think, health policy research. Like there's all these different things that you could focus on, that it's not, that typical what you think of, or what I used to think of when I thought about research, right? You're in the lab doing some kind of experiment. And there has to be a product is the requirement at the end of the 4 years. Most people get it done a little bit on the earlier side within the first 2 years, but you have the 4 years to get it done.
So it sounds like you define research very broadly, and there's different opportunities. And I'll look on your website. I'm sure there's something in there about the research tracks and lays it out. And I'll put that in the show notes if people want to go and dive a little deeper in what those other interesting pathways or tracks are to do research. The other question that we get is, how soon can I start seeing patients? So it sounds like, okay, so Icahn has, I think I read like 18 clinics or systems things around New York City. How soon can I get out there and start seeing these patients?
Pretty much at the start of orientation, really. I think Dr. Muller, who's the Dean of Medical Education, he invites even accepted students to visit his patients that are home-based.
Oh, wow.
So through the Visiting Docs program. So really, at the beginning, students are involved in clinical experiences.
Yeah. And I think it takes on different shapes, right? So during orientation, I feel like one of the first classes, maybe actually after orientation, but one of the first classes is a patient comes in to speak with the class, right? So that's kind of your first exposure to patients. And then, like I said, this ASM course, you are usually paired. I forget if it's in October. I think we let you kind of know where the bathrooms are first before we set you up with patients. But we have a year-long course that runs along with ASM, which is the longitudinal clinical experience. And you're paired with a mentor, a faculty mentor, and a patient that you follow, and you become part of their like medical team kind of. But you're seeing medicine from the patient's perspective. So you go on, depending on the interaction and the experience, right? You can go on appointments. So this is a chronically ill patient. So they can be, I feel like there's HIV, there's diabetes, there's different patients that you can follow. And so different patients, right, will have different experiences and different appointments and things that they have to deal with. But that you're following this patient for that year. And sometimes depending on the relationship that gets developed, I've heard that some students follow them longer, right? Than that. So you have that patient experience from, like Jackie said, from the moment you come.
Yeah, I think we all get that question a lot. And I think it's important though to tell students that we can't just, like you said, we got to show you where the bathrooms are first before we put you in front of patients. And I love that, the way you said that, because we have to give you some tools and teach you how to do some of these things before we put you in front of patients so that you feel more confident and comfortable, and you kind of know what you're doing at that point. So I'm glad you said that, because I know we all get that question a lot. It's a popular one. Can students outside of the prescribed clinical experience and training time, can they shadow physicians, start early clinical exploration of potential career pathways?
Definitely. So I think that's a plus for the fact that Icahn School of Medicine is a medical school within a hospital and not affiliated with a larger academic institution. Students can identify physicians and faculty that they want to potentially shadow, and the next day they're shadowing that person. In addition to that, students can get involved in EHOP, which is our East Harlem Health Outreach Program, which is a student-run free clinic for East Harlem community members.
Oh, wow.
And there are various ways in which students can get involved. So that's another opportunity and way in which students can get involved.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to my question about like community activity or involvement. I mean, you're in New York City. How do you not get involved in the community? So what are some of those popular activities that maybe all Icahn students do or the majority do? Are there some that just everybody gets behind, or is it just the world's your oyster?
Yeah, pretty much. I think so. The most popular among applicants is EHOP, right? They've all heard about the student-run free clinic. It's amazing. They all want to get involved, and I think when they get to the school, that's like their first thing. I need to get to EHOP, and then you kind of figure out where you fit, right? And so it depends, again, your interest, where they lie. There's tons of student interest groups and things that you can do. But then there's also, I mean, we have a large health system, and so there's all kinds of different things that you can get involved in. I know that there's a transplant interest group that students get a pager, and if there's a transplant, they actually go and like harvest the organ and stuff like that. Like it's pretty amazing, some of the stories I've heard. But then there's also like educational pipeline programs that students get involved in, like super involved, from the organization to the implementation to the teaching, right? And there's programs for middle school students. There's programs for high school students. There's also a first generation scholars program where students are paired with students in the community who are first generation applying to college. And so they're helping them kind of along that journey, right?
Yeah.
And so those are just examples of things. The list goes on, and I usually forget a lot of them. But there's things like that there's from clinical to educational to, just helping out the community with whatever they need. And a lot of the initiatives that Sinai has come up with, including EHOP, was all student driven, right? Like they saw a need in our community or communities, right? Depending on where in the city they saw a need, and they said, okay, we need to do something about this. And so I don't know. I never know if it's like the students we attract or the school we are. And I think it's some kind of mesh of the two.
Yeah, I bet.
Right?
Yeah. So it kind of in a similar vein, things that attract students to shop at our institutions are global health opportunities. And I saw when I was doing my homework that you have some dedicated opportunities. One is called Global Health Medicine, and then Global Mental Health Program, which I thought was, I've never seen that before. And they're in Belize and Liberia and Japan and India and Haiti and in the US. Can you talk a little bit more about those?
So we do have a global education. Yeah, there's a global health education, I guess, office within medical education. And of course, with COVID, most experiences have not been happening right now. And we're really hoping that this year that can change and go back to kind of business as usual, but we'll see how that goes. And so even that had to shift a little bit in their, in the way they delivered global health, right? So there's been some telehealth stuff, and I feel like a couple students got involved with, I feel like it was telehealth, maybe I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but psychiatry, but like at the borders. There's something like that, some project like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we actually also have a program called Global Health Scholars, which is a small cohort of students every year, like 2 students every year that are getting their MPH with a global health concentration. So it's a 5-year program because that scholarly year is the global health year, right? It's that global health experience. So those are the kinds of things we have. And yes, we have partners all over the place, but we sometimes say, if you come to the school with something that's solid, that an experience that you've already been a part of course, the global health office is going to do their research and make sure that it's, safe and educationally sound and, sustainable change kind of work. And then, we'll greenlight it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a good point. Cause sometimes I find similarly students say, I want to go here. And it's like, you got to first make sure it's like, it's safe for you to be there. And there's objectives involved in it, and there's mentorship. And so we're not just putting you on a plane and sending you someplace that, there has to be a lot of logistics in place. A couple of things I want to ask you before we move to the admissions piece is, where do students live? And when they come to school there, right, you're in the middle of Manhattan and like right across the street from kind of Central Park. So, and real estate's a premium in your area. Yeah. So where do students live?
Yeah. So we're pretty lucky in that we have subsidized housing for students. Medical schools are guaranteed housing, which is pretty sweet. And the residence hall is right across the street from campus. So it's not only affordable, which current students, they really talk about, like they'll put out there, like, this is what I'm paying. Like they're pretty happy about it. It's not only affordable, but it's close to campus. It's living with your friends, right? It's all of the good stuff. And it kind of makes moving to New York City a little bit easier, right? You don't have to worry about where am I going to live and figuring that out. I mean, going to any new city, right? Figuring out where you're going to live is a thing. So I kind of like, at least that's solved. We also have couples and family housing, which is a little more expensive, obviously, but it's also subsidized. So it's relatively okay, and it's near campus. The apartments are not as, some of them are closer and some of them a little bit further because we're dealing with different buildings. But most of the students live on campus. That said, if you can find something off campus that works for you, then that's okay too. And some people are a little bit older, they're established in the city, that kind of thing. And so they just kind of stay where they are. So that too, but our housing is pretty awesome.
Do you find it's intimidating for people to move to New York City if they're not from that area? Jackie, do you ever hear that kind of thing, that like, oh my gosh, I'm moving to New York City?
I think in the beginning it is a little bit of an adjustment, but while it's still exciting, of course, but it really is the experience that the students make of it, right? So some can stay within the bubble of Sinai, whereas others want to experience New York City for what it is, especially given all of the flexibility and time that students have within our curriculum. So you hear about students, they can take advantage of the discounted Broadway tickets that Sinai offers.
Wow.
And I've heard of one student who's attended more Broadway shows than I even knew existed. So really it is the experience that they make of it. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's cool. I could just see it because looking at your geographic distribution, it's not just students from New York and the Northeast that are coming to Mount Sinai. There are students from tons of states. And I could just imagine what that would feel like if you're from a more rural upbringing in the middle of the country. And now you're moving to, one of the largest cities in the world, what that might feel like. And you're going to medical school, which is an even, can feel even like a bigger amount of stress too. So I just was curious about it, but it sounds like you guys got them set up in some nice places and it's convenient. It's right across the street. You should be going to lecture because it's across the street and, and it's affordable. And there's a lot of opportunity there. Let me ask you this before we switch to admissions. Is there something that you wish people knew about Icahn that you can't find on websites and stuff that you'd like to express to people? Is there things that they have maybe perception, but you're like, no, like you got to check this out. This is cool.
That's a tough one. I feel like even when I'm at a fair and stuff it's hard, especially because, I'm from New York my whole life. And I've kind of grown up at Sinai. So it's a little bit difficult for me, but I think a big thing, it's such a great place. It's such a big place where, cutting edge research and clinical care is happening, that it can feel intimidating, but it also feels kind of like small at the same time, where faculty and staff, we know the students, we get to know them on real life terms, right? Like not just that's a student in the school, and they get to know us, and it feels it sounds a little something, but we kind of feel family-ish, even though it's this big kind of scary place. In a big kind of scary city. So I think that's something that I like to say.
Yeah. How about you, Jackie? What do you find?
I would even say also that we're ever evolving too. We're not stuck in our ways, especially within admissions, but also the larger institution itself. I mean, given the research with COVID too, Mount Sinai has really been at the cutting edge of research for the pandemic. But then also, I think within our group, we always try to do better than what we have done previously. So I don't think that you can really find that on our website.
Yeah. That's a good point. Cause sometimes it's like, well, this is how we've always done it. It doesn't sound like you're those kind of people, that you're always looking to fine tune and innovate where necessary. All right, cool. All right, let's switch gears. I want to get into the admissions piece, or at least the application process piece first before we get into the interview day and then kind of wrap up the process. So when you send out your secondary application to people and you're starting to get those back in, here's the question we get. What are you guys looking for? I've had applicants ask me, you get thousands of applications. How do you, what do you prioritize when you're screening? What are those things you're looking for in those students that help them get those interviews?
I don't know. No. No, I think It's a good question. I mean, I think there's so many accomplished people, looking to be doctors. So it's a difficult thing for sure. So kind of what we've done is we've tied what we're looking for to the attributes of a great physician, right? Because if we want physicians to have these great attributes, they may already be present in applicants. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. And we've kind of brought it down to, we had all kinds of words for these things. So we brought it down to self-improving and well, advocacy, lifelong learning, leadership, and teamwork or team player, right? So those are like the big attributes that we're looking for. And in applicants, besides a passion for medicine, right, and taking care of patients, we're looking for things and experiences that show those attributes.
Makes sense.
Right. So, and that could be anything, right? You can show lifelong learning through, your love of, like Jackie alluded to earlier, your love of ballet and your love of dance, right? Your passion for something that kept you going, right? Motivated you, your advocacy and the things that you care about, you're giving back, right, to someone outside of yourself. And that can take on and look in very different ways, right? Of course, we're looking for academic excellence, right? Because we need to know that you can do the work, right? Because there's actually, academics involved. But there's so much more that needs to be present. You have to have something outside of the academics to make sure that you're a well-rounded person and, and that you care, right? You care for others.
One thing, so applicants that are applying this upcoming cycle, they're not going to have all these experiences that we've been used to seeing for years. Because if they were sophomores last year, a quarter of their year was shut down, and then most of their their junior year has been shut down. And if they're applying this summer, they just don't have as many hours of stuff. How have you started to have this conversation in your office of how you're going to screen differently this year? Because I know we are too. It's going to be different. Yeah.
I feel like it already has impacted, right? A lot of applicants. It's just, especially those who are applying straight through. They just couldn't have that senior year full of stuff, right? Yeah. So it has already impacted. And I think the big thing was trying to figure out a way to have some kind of experience that was meaningful. We've seen a lot of different forms of that come out. So a lot of telehealth, a lot of, what's the word? The phone,
like virtual shadowing or
virtual shadowing,
e-shadowing.
Scribing. I've seen scribing where it's been virtual scribing. I've seen hotlines, things like that. So kind of thinking outside of that, that typical box, right? I mean, medicine in itself had to adjust, right? In a lot of different ways. And so I think these students are pretty resilient in the fact that, okay, I still want to do something. I want to figure out what I'm getting into, kind of thing, but it just looks different. And I think for us, this year has been kind of eye-opening, where we kind of have to teach the admissions committee members, right? Like, this is not your typical cycle. You're not going to see the same things, but these things are valuable as well, right?
I'm glad you said that, because I want people that are listening to hear that we're talking about this. Right? We're having these conversations. We're talking with our admissions committees and prepping them to let them know they're not going to look the same. They're not going to look the same. And so I just want them to hear that we're not just going along just like we always have, and we're trying to be reasonable and rational given what we've all gone through over the last year. So I think I want them to be reassured, I guess, is my point.
Yeah.
Before we go on about the admissions process, Icahn has a unique program in FlexMed, and this is where Jackie, this is your wheelhouse. So tell us about FlexMed because it's unique. It's like an early assurance program. So let me have it.
So it's our early assurance program where college sophomores can apply to our medical school during their sophomore year. And then they are notified of a position in the summer. So they know that there's a spot in medical school waiting for them once they start their junior year. So once they are admitted, there are certain requirements that they would need to fulfill before starting medical school with us, but those requirements look different than the traditional pre-med classes. Mm-hmm. They are not allowed to take the MCAT. So really the purpose is
shucks. I'm not allowed to take the MCAT?
And potentially Orgo. It's not a requirement.
I'm not allowed to take organic chemistry?
So really, how would students use the flexibility of this program? Because they aren't studying for the MCAT. They aren't preparing for the traditional medical school application interview trail. So to really pursue their academic passion during the rest of their undergraduate experience and double down in that passion, mm-hmm. To enter medical school more invested in that passion and become a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm. So you want them to go deep into something because they do have the time now that they don't have to dedicate to MCAT prep and maybe they don't have to take organic chemistry. I'm sure a lot of students aren't pushing back on that.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. So you want them to go deep into something. When you said they're applying as college sophomores, any college?
Yeah, from any college in the US or Canada, doesn't matter what major you are. It can be English, it could be biology, it could be engineering. Mm-hmm. So from any academic major. The only requirements to be eligible are that they've taken the SAT or ACT. So at least the admissions committee does see some sort of standardized testing acumen. And then complete a full year of biology, chemistry, or physics. So once again, the admissions committee can see a full year's worth of science coursework under mm-hmm. their belt. So those are really the only requirements.
And as we were all going back and forth over the last few weeks to find a date that works for everybody, at one point you were saying, hey, we're busy right now where we're interviewing for our early assurance FlexMed program. So there's an interview involved. Right. So for this piece, so let's talk about that. So they have to, in the past, I'm sure, do they have to come to New York City to interview?
Yes. So basically, it's never a dull moment in our office because once the traditional cycle ends, we gear up for FlexMed. So the deadline to apply for FlexMed, usually the application opens in August and the deadline to submit an application is January 15th. Mm-hmm. We screen applications from January to February, and then we typically have interviews anywhere from March to May. Mm-hmm. Last year we sent out interview invitations and then had to communicate that it was going to be a virtual mm-hmm. process because it was really at the start of quarantine. So this year it has been, so this is actually unfortunately the second year that we've done the virtual process. Mm-hmm. But in a normal year, it would be an in-person interview day that mirrors the process for the traditional track. So 2 half-hour interviews, meeting with faculty and potentially current students, and get a feel for the day. You have a tour. This time we provided a virtual tour. Yeah. But really it's a day for us to learn about the students, but for them to also learn about us and get a feel for who we are as well.
How many people apply to that program?
Between 650 to 800 this year. We saw, like medical schools nationally, we did see an increase in applications this cycle. But that's typically the applications. We usually interview anywhere from 120 to about 150 students, and then anywhere from usually 40 to 55 students may be admitted in a
That's a good chunk of your class. That's a good portion of your class. Yeah.
Yes,
wow. Because I was looking at your statistics on MSAR that. Because when we were talking, like, oh, she's like, Jackie's going to come off FlexMed. I'm like, oh, well, they have like 49, 50 people. Like, that's a big program as a part of your class.
And also, FlexMed students can take some time off before matriculating. So just because they graduate and finish college does not mean that then they have to start medical school that year. So that also impacts the number of early assurance students matriculating.
Oh, interesting. That's cool. They could take a gap year too if they want to. Okay. Yeah. Let me ask you this then. If you're a FlexMed, if you get in the program, then do you have to apply to AMCAS then and go through the interview process again for the med school just to like make sure, or are you just like, you're done?
Well, so finished? It's more of a pro forma process that they submit the AMCAS and secondary application
kind of get
closer.
In the database kind of thing.
Exactly. But there's they don't resubmit letters or a personal statement, and they don't have an additional interview because they've already been admitted. It's really just for the regular
to get you into the double AMC system, because then so just so people know, as a medical student, you're in their database. It also lines up with ERAS when you're applying to residency. So AMCAS is the gateway into the database that you'll be in for the remaining part of almost your training. So I get it. So you have to do kind of just go through the process, but it's not as intense and have to re-interview again. Right. Jessica, to come back to so then for our regular MD students, what's
just regular MD?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking of.
That's why we say traditional.
Yeah, my brain goes to the AMCAS classifications of the application type. There's regular MD, and then there's MD PhD. I'm just programmed that way.
I get it. I say it too.
So for the traditional medical school applicants to Icahn, so you require interviews. What's that process like?
Yeah. So we go through obviously the AMCAS application, verifying all that. Everyone that gets verified gets a secondary. Everyone who submits a secondary and completes an application. So complete application, right? MCAT, letters of recommendation, AMCAS, right? So everyone who gets a completed application goes through our screening. So there's kind of 2 rounds of screening. It's all by the admissions committee. So you're getting at least 2 looks of a full, holistic review of your application. And then we got to figure out who to invite for an interview. Unfortunately, we can't interview everyone, or even as many people as we would like. So when invited for an interview, it's similar. So we kind of mirror everything that we do on traditional track. We mirror for FlexMed. So it's the same interview process. You in regular life, right? What we usually do is we bring you to campus. You have a full day with us where we give you a little bit more of an insight into who we are. You see our facilities. You meet with either 2 faculty members or a faculty member and a senior student for an interview. It's all open file. So the interviewers have access to everything that you've given us up until that point, mostly for that holistic view of you, right? So that the interviewers get a sense of really who you are on paper, or who you've told us you are on paper. And then they meet you to see if kind of that matches up and if you would be a good fit for us. Our interview process is you getting a sense of us and also us getting a sense of you. It's the same situation. So even on interview, it's, kind of selling us, the faculty members and the students, right? Tell you how great we are. But also, like I said, getting to see if that paper person is the person that's sitting across from them from the table. And so we've had to pivot, right? As everybody has, to virtual. And there's been some positives and negatives to that, as I'm sure you've come to realize. It's a little bit different because we can't get a sense of really who you are. It's a virtual thing. People take breaks from camera and stuff like that. And so it's a very different experience, but I think we've done a good job. This year it's been kind of nice. We kind of created this virtual space, virtual waiting room that we've kind of had in person, right? Where they all are together in a group. And so they get to meet each other, which we've gotten good feedback on, because I think that's missing also on an interview day. In-person interviews, applicants build relationships, which is very interesting to me. It's always been a phenomenon that I found fascinating. You might meet other
people you saw at other schools.
Yes. And, I've seen people exchange contact information and they stay. And then when they come, if they're both accepted and matriculate, they're like, yeah, we met on our interview day. It's fascinating to me. But so we wanted to create that experience, right? We wanted to keep that a little bit on our interview day. And I think we've done kind of a good job with that. We also invite our current students to come and just talk with them throughout the interview day experience, which is really great. And we get great feedback on that as well, right? Because they want to know who's already in the school. And so I think that's an important piece to our interview day. And that's the interview experience. So
they get 2 interviews with 2 faculty or 1 student, 1 faculty?
Depending on the schedule, it could be 2 faculty members or a faculty member and a senior student. So it's like a scholarly year or 4th year student. Okay. So
listeners know that then, but the value of the student interview is just as much as if you had 2 faculty members, I assume.
For sure. And I kind of make that known every interview day. Like, this is a real deal interview and you treat it like, because there's equal weight, right? And some applicants, I mean, it's telling actually when they get to the student interview that they kind of like let their guard down a little bit too much. And it's like, sometimes it's even feels like the student interviewer feels like a lack of respect sometimes, which is fascinating. Yeah. Right.
I hope people just heard that because it happens.
And I make it as a joke in the like in the morning session. I kind of joke around, but it's serious stuff,
and
right?
This is happens.
Someone we put this person in front of you not as a joke.
Yeah, right? Or like that we're just like hanging out at the club, this is still a professional interview. Well, while they might be making you feel comfortable, you should not feel too comfortable.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. We have even the faculty members have pretty casual conversations with these applicants, right? It's not like high stress. Like we try to create this like comfortable environment, or we hope to. And so exactly that, right? Like, although we're kind of just having a conversation, it's still very high stakes, right? Yeah. So don't just act like it's your friend.
Right. You're exactly right. I'm glad you said that, because you need to kind of keep that in mind. People are going to want to make you feel comfortable so that our goal is to get to know you as much as we can, who you really are, not the stress ball person. We know this is high stakes. You're going to be a little nervous, but if we can get you to relax a little bit, we can hopefully get to meet the person who you are when you're not in a suit and, sitting in front of us. But to get there, it doesn't mean you have to then just pretend that we're just hanging out, having a drink together. Right. Right.
And the flip side of that too, right? To your point, you don't want to have too much of a facade.
That's right. Yeah.
Because then it just seems like you can't break that, right? Like, I need to know who you are because we need to know if this is the environment where you'll thrive. Right. And so you can't be too prepared and too tense and too much in that interview mode, because then we don't really get to know. We could have just read your paper, right? Application. So,
you probably hear these. They were hard to draw out.
Yeah.
And like it was like, boys, they were hard to draw out, but once we got going, boy, they really loosened up.
Yeah.
So we all kind of talk the same language so don't be afraid to share other things. Maybe a point here to emphasize. Don't be afraid to share other things about yourself that's not in the application.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Especially regurgitating from the application.
Everything.
Right? Everything. Yeah. Because while you should know what you wrote, that shouldn't be your script. Right? If that makes sense. That shouldn't, don't tell the same stories. Exactly. Yeah. There should be at least one other patient experience or one other like reason for this, or, it should be authentic.
So are you 100% in for virtual interviews next cycle, 21, 22?
Hi, next cycle. So,
I know we haven't even put this one to bed yet, but
it really feels that way, especially since we go right into FlexMed. But I think the hardest part about switching back to in-person is the equity of it, right? We thought about doing some kind of hybrid thing, and we may still do something in person, right? Like offer something.
Sure. But like open house or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having an option for one or the other, right? Because then what if I can't come to campus, or what if I'm just down the block? I think, boils down to the equity of it. I can't see how offering that makes it equitable, right? So after a year, we haven't decided though, so I don't want to say.
It's kind of sad, but it sounds like we're leaning more towards virtual in 21, 22 than not.
Yeah, okay. I think so.
Okay, let's go into if we're virtual next year, and we all just went through this process of pivoting and adapting and changing. What's some of your reflecting back on these last several months and doing virtual interviews, what would be some of your advice to applicants who are coming up that have to do virtual interviews? What would you tell them? Just any kind of tip.
Yeah. I think it's okay to be upfront about your situation virtually, right? And I tried to say that in all our materials, right? But it's really true. Like if for some reason you are having trouble finding a quiet space, or if your internet is not so reliable, I'd rather know that before the interview day or even the morning of, right? Then maybe the call drops or even something like that. I think just letting us know so that we're prepared and we can help you, right? Navigate through whatever that means. I think that's a big one because you don't want to seem like you're not prepared. I get that, but if I don't know, then I can't be there for you.
Yeah. What do you think, Jackie?
Well, so I think this happens more on the FlexMed side, but it's still a human interaction while it's more of us trying to have a comfortable conversation. But we can see if you're reading notes on your screen and like have points that you want to get across. Like that's not the purpose of our interview. We are just trying to have a conversation and get to know you a little bit better. We've reviewed your application, so it's really an opportunity to see if you're a good fit for us, in addition to if we're a good fit for you. So we could still like having the eye contact, not reading notes on your screen.
Yeah, that's good. No, I would say I would kind of expand on both of yours. That tell us what's going on your end. Like you were saying, Jessica, like if you're having Wi-Fi issues today, or you know what, I might have some disruptions going on in the background. Sorry, but this is what's going on. Or I have two screens. And if you see me because I frequently tell applicants that I have two screens, I have your application open on this screen. So if you see me looking over here, I'm not looking at email or YouTube videos of kitty cats or something. I'm I'm looking at your application. So, because I've seen some applicants this year who appear to be, during the information session, like looking over at another screen, and like, are they looking at email or some research they're working on, and then it just kind of makes you wonder, like, what are they doing? Or I'll frequently tell you can't see right now. We're on Zoom that I'm taking notes down here, because you can't see my desk, but I'm taking notes. So I think I think good student interviewers will say, Hey, I'm just, I have some notes down here, or I've got another screen, or here's what's going on my end. And I think that we want to know. I think that's important. Right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens then, because the next question would be, are you going to keep doing this? And we won't go there, but we're going to keep doing virtual interviews.
I think in general, virtual things are probably here to stay. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the extent of that is. But I think an element of it is here to stay. Right. And so we'll see what it looks like, for admissions going forward. Yep. It's been quite interesting. To say the least.
Right. I mean, if we just go back to what we were doing before this all happened, then we haven't learned anything.
Exactly.
So you're right. I think there's going to be some elements that we'll all incorporate into our future processes because of what we've had to do in the last several months. And it might be for the better. For the better.
For sure.
Just so to kind of wind things down, after the interview day, so we have an admissions committee and then students. Do you do rolling admissions, or do you announce admissions decisions on certain days? Let's start with FlexMed. When do students find out about FlexMed?
So July 1st, around or on July 1st is our target of when we send out decisions for FlexMed. So that provides students the opportunity, if they are admitted and they want to change around their course schedule, now that they know there's a spot waiting for them, they still have time to adjust for the fall.
Yeah. Okay. I laughed because he said July 1st, or no, on or about July 1st. You got to be purposely vague a little bit. I had this happen to me a number of years ago, but I told admissions, like a group that was interviewing, like, we're going to have your decisions to you on November 4th. And then November 4th came, and you know what shut down that day? AMCAS. Like, it was down. And so we couldn't put our decisions in to send them out. And,
hilarious.
And our phones blew up. I was getting crushed on student doctor. That guy said they're going to be out today. I learned my lesson, Jackie, like, it'll be on or about this very vague timeline. So we'll let you know.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
How about for the traditional medical applicants? What is their timeline?
So we do have a rolling process. And no matter how much information I give on interview day, I tried, that vague thing too. I try to be non-specific because I don't want to tell them, what date we're making decisions, because then they'll call the office. It doesn't matter, because there's that thing called studentdoctor.net, and people will look back into like 2 years ago and then last year and figure out. So they're going to do this probably around Friday of, something like that. Yeah. So yes, we are rolling. We start usually making decisions around January, and then we do kind of monthly after that.
Okay.
We don't really have set dates because of scheduling, right? So depending on faculty schedules, things may have to be shifted a week this way or a week that way. But yes, it is rolling, and we try not to make like a formulated wait list until we've seen all of the interviewees. So we kind of say, you're accepted, or we're still kind of figuring it out until we make our waitlist decisions.
Okay. Then waitlist decisions probably come in April-ish, or
we try to do late March. Okay. Yeah. We try to do late March, and then, we just go from there. I think the hardest thing for applicants is all the different waiting periods, right? Yeah. So, I submit my AMCAS and then I wait. I get interviewed and then I wait. I'm waitlisted and then I wait.
It's a very long, painful process.
Yes,
we get it.
And I exactly that. I'm like, I get it, and I feel for you, and I totally understand. And so I want to give you as much information as I can at every touch point that I have with you. And unfortunately, I could accept you the day before school starts, which sucks. But it is a thing. Yeah.
It's tough. We don't like, we'd like to have everything set weeks in advance.
Yes.
But change happens. Decisions change at other places and it trickles down. And so we sometimes have to do things on the fly. If somebody is on your wait list, do you want to hear from them? Do you want to hear letters or updates that are significant?
Yes. So we definitely want to have them be in touch with us. If there's no like specific update that you can provide, right? Like nothing significant happened. That's totally fine. We do want people who want to be students at our school, right? And so the only way for us to know that, right? Because anything can change, right? You've been interviewed in January or December or whatever date, and then you decide, I'm over it, right? Like, I don't care about Sinai anymore. How do I know that if you don't tell me?
Yeah.
So I want to hear from you. And I usually joke that, there's this, it's kind of like dating. I want to hear from you, but too much can be too much. Not enough can be not enough. Right. And so there's that fine line, but we do need to hear from you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Jackie, is there a FlexMed wait list? I didn't ask you about that.
Yeah, so we decide whether or not we'll have a wait list after meeting with all applicants and looking at the total pool. Previously, we have had wait lists. It really just depends on the cycle. Last year, we didn't.
Okay.
So we'll figure things out because we just finished our, yesterday was our last day of interviews.
Oh,
so
boy.
We'll be looking at everything and figuring all of that good stuff out for on or around July 1st.
On or around July 1st. Okay, so we've gotten through all that stuff. Any final, I think we're getting near the end here. Any kind of final thoughts? Anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to, when we were coming into this day, that you wanted to get across to people about Icahn? How about Jackie? You are an advisor. Like part of your role is giving tips, advice. What's one of your biggest pieces of advice to students as they're getting ready to embark on this application process?
Yeah, I mean, so for the FlexMed program, I usually advise students that they should really be in touch with their pre-health office. Because it's open to students from any academic major, some students might not even have that interaction, but really that's what they're there for, is to help you, advise you along the way to put together an application. So I think it's only a resource that benefits you. But also really, I think it's important to reflect on why you're interested in pursuing this as a career in the first place. Reflect on that, reflect on your experiences, and what is the common theme that's drawing you to this field is really important.
Yeah. Jessica, what's your big words of wisdom to applicants when they're getting ready to start another cycle? We're getting ready here soon.
I think that reflection on why you want to do this is really important. And kind of writing down your experiences in that kind of mind frame, right? Like, okay, so what is all the stuff that I've done to this point? It could be anything, right? Any experience that you've had, and see if there's a thread there of something. It could be anything. For me, it would be probably performing. But if it's some kind of thread that tells your story in a good cohesive way, I think that's a great way to package who you are, right? Tell your story, and tell us why your story helps inform your moving forward in this career.
Awesome. That's good. it's a good way just before you get into this writing personal statements and putting stuff down on, entering things in the AMCAS, like take that big step back, really look in and look at that reflection and see what's brought you to this point where you're putting all your chips into the career in medicine. Because once that train starts, it doesn't stop. Yeah. This has been fun. You two are fun. This is a lot of laughs, and I can tell we've had some shared admissions experiences and stuff. So this is great. Before I let you go, recommendations. Like what are some of your favorite books or podcasts or shows or something that you share that you like? You got to check this out. What would you tell people?
So I feel like I've thought about this a little bit because I knew you were going to ask, and I felt like I do nothing with my time because I kind of couldn't think of something exciting. There is one book that for personal and just educational, I guess, reasons, I've been coming back to, and it's the Afro-Latino Reader, which it's personal because it was edited by my aunt.
Oh, wow.
And personal that way. And then just educational because it's the history and culture in the United States. And so it's just a good read, and it's something that you don't have to sit down, which is good for me, and like kind of read from beginning to end. So that was one that came to mind.
The Afro-Latino Reader.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put links to that. Jessica, Jackie, how about you?
So I haven't read this book yet, but it did. One of our current students recommended this for one of our interview day waiting rooms to applicants. Medical Apartheid, about the healthcare disparity within this country. And so that's on my reading list. So
I will add that to the links too. So those sound like two interesting pieces of literature to pick up and just check them out. That's why I put that stuff in there. I found some books people recommend. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that. And then I read it. I'm like, that's really cool that I just never, there's so many things to read, listen to right now that we have so much access to, whether it's through Audible books or Spotify or, Amazon. There's just so much we have access to. So it's fun to just check out and, sample things. So I appreciate those. Listen, this has been a really good time. And I'm so glad I was able to get you on here to talk about Icahn and the unique programs that you have there. So thank you so much. I say this to all my guests just because we've been doing this on Zoom, but I can't wait to meet you guys in person. Like at the next double AMC conference, to bump into you and give you a big COVID post hug or something.
Agreed. This has been great.
Thank you so much. This has really been fun.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. I'll see you guys later.
All right. Take care.